Good morning, everybody. I'm Kate Seeley with the Middle East Institute. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this very important discussion about the future of Egypt and the role that the U.S. government and NGOs can play in helping assist the reform and development process in Egypt. There's clearly a great need for all sorts of assistance at this critical juncture as Egypt transitions from an autocratic government to what we hope will be a democratic system. And I think there is an understanding in Washington today that it is very important that Egypt get it right, because it will then serve as a model for the rest of the region, as hopefully the rest of the region also democratizes. But there is a concern that at this very critical time, when the U.S. has a very important role to play in Egypt, that our resources are quite limited. The blog, The Cable, today reported that the House Budget Chairman Paul Ryan is seeking to cut the budget for international affairs and foreign assistance by 29% in 2012 and 44% by 2016. And I'm sure if implemented, this will have a big impact on our ability to assist Egypt and other emerging democracies. Another challenge, I gather, is heightened expectations in Egypt. Les Campbell, who couldn't make it today, recently came back from Egypt and said there is talk there, there are expectations there that the U.S. will implement a Marshall Plan in Egypt. Unfortunately, that does not look to be on the U.S. agenda. But what can the U.S. government do in Egypt, and what can organizations like IRI, NDI, NED, and others do to support reform and democracy, especially given these limited restrictions? Here to tackle these questions and the challenges therein are two individuals who are very involved in development and democracy promotion in the region and are currently in the thick of this debate, and we're very fortunate to have them here with us today. Hady Amr is the Deputy Assistant Administrator for the Middle East for USAID, which he joined last year. Prior to that, he served as the founding director of the Brookings Doha Center in Qatar and as a fellow Foreign Policy Studies fellow at the Saban Center, also at Brookings. He served as a senior advisor in the Office of Policy at the U.S. Department of Homeland Security and has worked for or advised the World Bank, the World Economic Forum, the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, and UNICEF. Thomas Garrett has very kindly stepped in for Les Campbell, who had to travel, so thank you for doing this on such short notice. He joined IRI in November 1994 and currently serves as Vice President for Programs. Prior, he served as IRI's Regional Director for the Middle East and North Africa. And at IRI, Mr. Garrett has worked on election observation missions in Afghanistan, Albania, Azerbaijan, Egypt, and elsewhere in the world. Before joining IRI, Mr. Garrett served as Legislative Assistant for Native American issues to Senator Frank Murkowski. Thank you both once again. We are going to start with Hady and follow with Tom. Welcome, Hady. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Podium. Was not expecting a podium, but listen, I'm really honored to be here. I'm pleased to be here. I want to thank Kate and Ambassador Chamberlain for the kind invitation. Think tanks are my home in Washington, in a sense, having spent most of my career doing public policy reflections. And many, many years ago, when I first came to Washington as a just finished my graduate degree, actually did a course here at the Middle East Institute, which was valuable to me. So I'm looking forward to being here. I have some remarks that I want to frame the discussion with, and I hope that there's time for discussion, because I'm actually here largely to learn from all of you and get your reactions to not only what I say, but what you see on the television and what the U.S. government is doing and what's happening on the ground in Egypt. So thank you all very much. I want to start by, just acknowledging the truly inspirational and transformational events that took place in Tunisia, in Egypt, across the Middle East. As somebody who's spent a significant part of my life in the Middle East and in the U.S., it's just been really a wonderful thing to watch, and I think it's inspired all of us in Washington, from all corners of government, including in the White House, just watching events unfold, particularly in Egypt and Tunisia. And we watched the events much like all of you did. We watched them on television. We watched them unfold in the streets, and that was the clearest and most concise way that we were receiving information in this sort of new, transparent, age where information travels quickly, where a young person's blog, where a young person's cell phone photo can be emailed around and make the news. And that's how we were also receiving the news, in addition to other ways. And Egypt, as you all know, those of you who watch the Middle East know, Egypt is just such a pivotal country in the Arab world. It's central because of its geographic location, because of its size, because of its relationship with world powers, the Suez Canal. It's very pivotal for us, and so the U.S. government is taking the economic development and political developments in Egypt with a tremendous amount of seriousness, because we feel that what happens in Egypt will really resonate in the Arab world. And so the direction that Egypt goes is of sort of central strategic importance to us. From the USAID perspective, where I work, improving the quality of life for Egyptians has been a central goal of ours since the late 70s. And the quality of life includes, not only education and healthcare, but also the ability to participate in civil society. We have been engaged to the tune of many billions of dollars with the Egyptian people, with the Egyptian government to do this since 1975. And when we got involved 35 years ago, Egypt was a stagnant economy where the per capita GNP was $260 a year. It's increased 9 or 10-fold to over $2,000 a year today, moving it sort of into the next level of income. And so that's been something that we're really proud of. Our partnership with the people and government of Egypt to improve their economy, improve their society, and improve their lives. In terms of democracy and governance programming, again, USAID and the U.S. government more broadly has engaged in democracy and governance programming, as we'll hear about in more detail later on, really since the beginning, and with dozens and dozens of projects and large amounts of funds. We feel that the investments that we've made, again, over $1 billion in democracy and governance programming in Egypt, is actually paying off now in the insights that young people have about democracy, in the networks that they're forming, in the ways that they're trying to shape the laws and the Constitution of Egypt. I think there's a long way to go, but there's just a tremendous amount of pride that USAID has in the partnership it had, USAID and the U.S. government more broadly, in the partnership that it had with Egyptian civil society over recent decades. I'm told that since 2005, more than 100 civil society organizations have been working on areas ranging from anti-corruption, rule of law, human rights, electoral processes, local governance, in partnership with the U.S. government on these issues. On other areas, USAID has worked to raise international human rights standards through nationwide human rights education campaign and distributing, hundreds of thousands of youth books about human rights. We've worked through independent media, training more than 2,000 media professionals, engaging youth in new media technologies. Now, moving forward, in this, so it's now been, so we're now in April, so March, in the last 2 or 3 months, we took stock, we reflected, we talked to civil society organizations in Egypt, we had some serious discussions, and we developed some new priorities moving forward and a new way of doing work.